We've never been so quiet.
Yeah, I was just going to. So I'm just trying to sort things out so I can actually see a bit of the agenda, the paperwork. So, and I don't miss anybody. So, what is it? past, isn't it? I've been told the meeting's being recorded.
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
Because we've not had that before.
Yeah, we had it on planning, didn't we, Alicia?
Yes, we've had it before.
All right. Okay. Right. Well, shall we start then? And as it's past and doesn't look like anybody else. So on the agenda, do you election of chairman, or what would you like to do first of all, Alicia?
I think if we can do election of chairman, please.
Right. So I was elected the chairman, but only as a substitute last time. So it all depends on whether you want me to attempt to do it from 500 miles away, or anybody else would like to run it.
Yeah, I nominate Councillor Roden.
We have the five-a-side. We have everything that we have in there. Plus, we've planted new trees. I think we could be at danger of a bit of overload here. So they're my comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make any comments? Yes, Pam.
No, I'd like to agree with that. I've got grave concerns about it, but I would like to see the kids using it. But I think this year 6 pupil is top year junior school. Very probably keen on playing it every break time, in and out, lunchtime, etc. When he goes up to the Ferris school next year, he probably won't want to know. But I do agree with what Councillor Gardner said. I think we're opening ourselves up to an awful lot of vandalism and trouble if we put it in the rec, and I don't think it'd make any difference if it went in the Castle Field.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barry Spencer. Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, fully agree with Angela and Pam's comments. It'll end up being used as a table, would probably be covered with fast food and God knows what, and just another congregational annoying area.
Okay, thank you. I think Tina had a hand up earlier. Do you want to say something, Tina?
Well, it was really just the same as what Pam, Angela and Barry have now said. I was trying to, I had to walk around today to see if there's any way that we could actually put it somewhere near Mugger so that it could be enclosed in with the Mugger, and it can't be. And that would be one of the only ways that we could protect it from, misuse. And I think it lends itself to more misuse than it does actually use. So I'm afraid I agree with the others.
Okay, Councillor Gerald.
I think it should be done. The reason being that it's young people, and I think they should have something to use. But obviously, I can understand what other people are saying. But I noticed on the things that Rushden Town Council are going to have one. Surely, shouldn't we wait and find out what happens with theirs, rather than saying it's a no? Wait until they put theirs in and see what happens, because I'm all for young people having activities and doing things. I mean, the vandalism side, yes, there could be, but then there may not be. I mean, we're sort of thinking is the worst rather than thinking the best, and I'm not ready for that. But however, my view is it should be put through.
Bert.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, if it's concrete, vandalism shouldn't affect it. But I wonder whether we should be looking at elsewhere, such as Castle Fields, rather than we're putting everything into Saffron. Well, we've obviously got the timber work in Castle Fields, the benches, and also the walking trail. Possibly we should start thinking, but to be quite honest, the 2,200 was a little bit of a surprise. I was surprised how expensive they were. So anyway, that's well, if you do what they're advising, but then again, we would only be starting on one, wouldn't we?
Angela, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, with the antisocial behaviour, rather than the vandalism element, that would be bad enough. We currently, as you all know, and I'll just bring Councillor Kelly up to speed. I work with the police and the PCSOs on all the antisocial behaviour that's currently happening down there, and it still is an ongoing issue. It's still something that we're plagued with, and meeting areas at the moment seem to be. When we move them off there, they go to Nightingale Way. When they're finished at Nightingale Way, they come back up at Saffron, and this is why we had advice to close the car park, because that was the general meeting place. If a table tennis table was to be put anywhere, it would have to be in complete and utter plain view. We do have still drug dealing elements going on that we are trying desperately to get on top of. And although I have the very best, and I want the young people to use it, the age range that's going to use it is going to be the 9s and aboves. And there is limited usage in that age before they go off and do something else. As much as I want them to interact and have a sporting element, I would perhaps try and direct them more towards the mugger that we have. But I do still have massive grave concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Right, well, having listened to all of that, Councillor Kelly, do you want to?
I was just going to say, I mean, I obviously understand your concerns, but I'm not sure putting a table tennis table in and sort of connecting it to drug dealing is what table tennis was about. It was really about trying to get people to play in a park, and I'm sure the parks are there to get people and young people to actually use them rather than not. I know I can understand yourself, I can understand what you're saying about gatherings, but parks are there for gatherings. It's not all bad, and drug dealing has got nothing to do with a table tennis table. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'm just wondering whether to I wouldn't say kick it into the long grass, but something that Councillor Kelly said in his first bit was, I wonder whether we should postpone any decision on this until after Rushden have installed one, and that we see what the response is there before we make any form of decision.
Yeah.
Advising the main council.
I would second that proposal.
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah.
So all in favour, please, for that?
I'll be happy with that.
Looks like that's unanimous, Alicia.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, can I just ask, where are Rushden put in theirs? Is it going in Spencer Park or Hall Park?
I believe it's going to Spencer Park.
Yeah, Spencer Park, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best thing, right? We're not saying no, we're not saying yes at the moment. I think there's an awful lot of questions on that one. So. Okay, item number 6 is safety servicing at Saffron Road play area. I think that's the additional paperwork.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, at the time of writing the agenda, I only had 2 quotes. So a paper was circulated today with the 3rd quote on it. So I don't know whether you've all seen that or not.
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, I've got mine.
The third quote that came in was actually the highest of the 3 quotes.
And it had the least guarantee as well.
And a 2-year guarantee also.
Yeah.
That's right. So the difference between quote A and quote B is marginal in terms of pricing. The guarantee period is the same. It was just the depth of the bonded mulch. One was at 40 mil and one was at 50.
Is that going to make a difference? Because if we're just patching, aren't we?
No, this is a proposal to completely
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so to remove the wet pour on the flat swings, the seesaw and the multiplay unit that is located next to the seesaw. There are images on the next page of the report, but I know that you've passed that.
Yeah, are any of these quotes from companies we've used before?
All 3 companies we've used before.
Okay. Councillor Jackson, I think you might have been first.
Now the seesaw, yes, I know it has some damage on the surface, but you're not going to fall off and hurt yourself too much on a seesaw. So does it have to be completely removed and replaced? Could it not have a top surface put on? But then again, I suppose if we go back for more quotes, it'll almost end up the same price as the quotes we've already got. But obviously, when we go in quote A, that's a 50 mil depth, 5-year guarantee, and that is the cheapest. Whereas quote B is 11,446 for 40 mil depth. So depending on the quality, as long as quality is good on A, I would have thought it would be more sensible to go for quote A.
Yeah.
Can I just confirm, Alicia, under the flat swings, they're going to have the rubber mulch where it wears?
No, they actually said, to be honest with you, the wear on the wet pour and the wear on bonded mulch is kind of the same. So they said there's no reason to have a wet pour strip surrounded by bonded mulch. They said you might as well just have the whole area as bonded mulch. And at some point there will be where the children sort of scuff when they swing to start and stop. But that's just long-term wear and tear that you would get the same with wet pour as you would do with bonded mulch. There was no difference really. So I know that we did that for the toddler swings, but that's not, but the actual wear and tear is the same on either wet pour or bonded mulch. So that's why it's not been put through this time.
Okay. Thought Pam had a hand up
Yeah,
earlier
no,
on.
it's all right. I've just had my question answered. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, if you wanted wet pour, so it matched with a wet pour strip or circles, so it matched with the toddler swings, you could do, but it's not, but it would be for aesthetic reasons as opposed to wear and tear reasons.
Okay, Councillor Kelly, you had your hand up.
I'm just saying that I take it that this is a sort of health and safety issue, is it? If we didn't do anything and something happened, we would be liable. Would that be correct?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fine. That's sort of saying in my head. Then it's
Yeah.
I think as well, if like the flat swings, I mean, I've been with the council 10 years. We've had the strip redone underneath the actual swings, but not the rest of it. And the trouble is, if we keep leaving things, we're going to end up with all of it having to be done at one time. And I was around the play area today, and it's really bad under the flat swings. In fact, we're having to get one of our contractors just to put a temporary repair on where the children are pulling it up because it's gone so badly. And I mean, there are areas that will be highlighted on a risk rating when we have our full annual inspection. So we do have to have safety surfacing at some point, and there's no merit in leaving everything to get to a stage where it's warm, because there'll be lead times is the other thing before we can get this work done.
Yeah, because we're also coming into the school holidays, and so it will take probably 3 days to do it. So yeah, sections will be closed off during peak time really, but I think it's more important, probably, unless people say otherwise, to get it done as soon as we can, particularly the flat swings.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I can understand, obviously, we need the safety matting on both the swings and the multi-saw, but as I said, the seesaw, I can't quite see that we need a really safe safety ground, because obviously they're not going to, if they fall off, there's no distance. So I just wonder whether we're paying an awful lot of money to strip it all out and then replace, when possibly it could be done on the surface, patched on the surface, well, not patched, but a treatment on the surface.
I think the trouble is we've been doing that, and if you think how high is the seesaw when it's at its highest, when you fall off that's when you got to think, not when it's level.
Sometimes, yeah, no problem. Well, in that case, I would, depending on obviously the contractors being acceptable to the council, I would say that I would go for quote A. I propose quote A.
I'll second that.
Right, I've got Councillor Gardner with her hand up, and then Councillor Reevy with her hand up too. Angela, if you'd like to go ahead first.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Jackson with the quote A. However, seesaw issues, taking councillor hat off, putting mum hat on, having a child fall off a seesaw, as mine do on a regular occurrence, and fall off anything at regular occurrence down at Saffron. They do when they go with a bang. And the thing is, at the end of the day, when you go down there and you walk around it, to us as adults, these little lips, they don't seem a lot, but when you've got little feet and they tend to get stuck under them and then they fall over, it's a big thing. So to me, we're talking about a children's play area. We're promoting it. We get people from Rushden and all kinds. I mean, we know that's fact. We've got a fantastic play area. Don't scrimp and scrape. You know, patching something up only leads to more expense further down the road. It's a false economy, and if we are going to be liable, as Councillor Kelly rightly said, in any way, shape or form, then we need to do a job and do it properly, because at the moment it's in an absolute dire state, and we have got this 6 weeks coming up, and we need it to be safe, because we'll have the winter around the corner and we won't be able to repair it in a good quality with that. So I propose do it all, quote A.
Oh, it's all right. I'd already accepted that, but that's why I propose quote A. I was just saying, was there a chance of some saving? But no, I've been around there today, and I agree that they all need repairing in some form or another.
Councillor Reevy, you.
To be honest, Councillor Gardner's taken the words out of my mouth. I think the height of the seesaw, when it's at its high end, is as high, if not higher, than some of the swings. So therefore, can I second Councillor Jackson's proposal that we go with quote A?
Now, a quick clarification. I think as an advisory committee, is this taken forward by Sandra with her devolved powers, or does it go to has to go to the main council for agreement?
Normally I would have probably had to go to full council, but seeing how bad it is under the swings today, I am going to get Alicia to implement the order tomorrow, because we need to get this in their order books and moving forward. Because I am very concerned about, especially the swing area, how bad that is. But I have got enough sufficient with the emergency delegated powers. I can do that.
Okay, so we had it proposed that we go for quote A, and it was seconded. So all in favour? Myself. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Oops, I've now lost my. Oh, there we go. Right, item 7, shelter at the dogs off lead area, ages 14 to 16. Dear, miles away, all about. Right, 14. To consider the provision of a wet weather shelter at the dogs off lead area. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of comments. So it looks like Angela's got her hand up first.
Please, can I ask, has this come from Town Council, or has this come from the dog walkers, please?
This came following a request for the agenda item from Councillor McCann at the last committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to make any comments? I mean, I will make a comment to start with. I can understand the request, but even I think the cheapest option is, I was quite surprised.
Eye-watering.
Eye-watering. That's a good way of putting it. So I was very surprised at the cost of that. It does seem, and I mean, to be honest, if I would be going for the, is that the Smoking Star shelter? Is that the third photograph we got there?
Yeah.
On the right hand side, even that's supply only at £3,300. I thought that was didn't use the words eye-watering, but I did wonder if that's a bit expensive. Right, Councillor Whiting, you got your hand there.
Okay, yeah, no, I've got grave concerns over this and the money that they're costing. I mean, you look at the price and you think, oh, that's great, and then you notice that it's supply only. It's probably going to cost as much, if not more, to get it fitted. I really don't know. I mean, people who tend to take dogs for a walk, they tend to wear waterproof clothing anyway, and I just think it's an awful lot of money to spend when they raised all the money to put another gate up there. If they want a shelter, then, you know, let them raise a bit of money and we'll probably try and help it. But I think for us to spend out £11,000 for a shelter up there, I'd rather say put a couple of their town council gazebos up.
Councillor Spencer, I think you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, fully agree with Councillor Whiting there. I think my thing as a buyer, they're all well overpriced. My other comment would be, should it get passed, I would suggest would be better going for a metal one rather than timber, because with timber you've got possible vandalism, fire, rot, for ongoing problems. The metal one lasts for years and only maybe have to be painted now and again or something. But overall, I think it's a lot of money what we could really do without at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I looked at this and I can't really see why we need it for a couple of reasons. I mean, as Councillor Whiting said, people who are going to take a dog for a walk know what the weather's like anyway. I go across that bridge quite a lot because I walk up Stanwick quite a lot. And to be honest, I haven't seen anybody walking the dog across that bridge to it. What I have seen is a lot of people in cars coming out and then going in there. So, you know, if you're driving a car to take your dog for a walk, you know what the weather's like anyway. And if it's raining, you get back in your car and you go home. Why would you need a shelter in there? There is a bench in there if you want to sit down on it. And if you are taking a dog for a walk, you know what the weather's like anyway. And it's a colossal amount of money to spend on a shelter that's in the middle of nowhere. Where really you're just taking your dog for a walk, you're going to watch it run around and you're going to come back around and get in your car, or if you do actually walk to Highland Ferrers across that bridge, you're going to walk back again. So I just can't see why we would need it at all. And obviously, as it's been mentioned, the ongoing effects of maybe vandalism, I don't know, and making a metal structure, you know, and the ongoing repair and cost for that. So I can't really see why we need that at all.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't quite sure if Councillor Reevy had her hand up on stage.
I think it's a lot of money for what it is, and I know, just like Councillor Kelly said, most people that go there seem to go in the cars anyway. I mean, I have walked across the bridge with my dog, but I wouldn't do it if it was raining, unless I took my umbrella with me. So I'd rather see a shelter near the bus stop, near the co-op, so that people can be sheltered there, and the older generation have a seat to sit on while waiting for a bus, rather than spend. But the minimum is 3,300, and that's supply only, so you can take that up to 4,000, I would say, at least. So
Councillor Jackson.
Some years ago, we had a request from footballers, could they have a shelter for possibly some of their supporters, but mainly to put their kit under when it was very wet. And unfortunately, it was turned down because they considered the expense was unnecessary. So to spend this kind of money for dog walkers, I think we might get a few comments from the footballers.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Citing all of the comments from all of the councillors, which I completely adhere to, can I propose that on this occasion we say thank you but no thank you to this proposal, and if anybody from the Dogs Off Lead area wishes to come forward with the money in the future, perhaps we can have a discussion at that point.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've had a proposal, we've had it seconded, so anybody in agreement, put the hand up, please. And that looks like it's unanimous again, Lisa.
you.
Well, I find what the next all right. Bollards, item number 8, bollards Roman Way. Consider a request for bollards to be installed on the grass area in Roman Way as a means to prevent vehicles parking. Pages 17 to 19. Right, let's have a look. I did have to have a careful look to see where we were talking about, but now I understand it when I looked at the map. Right, has anybody got want to say anything? Well, it looks like I've got Councillor Reevy with a hand up, but almost straight away there.
No, I went round last night at 5:45 because I thought there's bound to be some parked there at 5:45, and actually there was not a thing in sight. So yeah, I don't know when they are parked there, but they certainly weren't there last night. I can see why you wouldn't want vehicles parked there, but to be perfectly honest, that's the same with awful lot of grass verges in the area. When I did go last night, I went down Oak Drive, and at the bottom of Oak Drive where it joins Linden Avenue, there was a small van parked on that grass verge. So are we going to go around the whole town putting bollards on all our grass verges?
I think Councillor Jackson was next, and then Councillor Whiting.
What concerns me is when you go round in the evenings, the amount of vehicles parked alongside, half on pavements, half off, and you tend to think developers have just got to give more space for the inhabitants' cars, because obviously it is getting ridiculous. So my idea is that in a few years' time, we'll be finding, instead of putting bollards, we'll be tarmacking those stretches over to provide car parking. So as Councillor Reevy said, I feel that we would be preventing people to park, and they would just park on the road and then make it impossible for service vehicles, ambulance, fire, etc., getting around the centres. Thank you.
Councillor Whiting.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to say what Councillor Reevy said. I went round at 7:30 last night, and I only saw one commercial vehicle parked down there, and that was on the road. There was nothing on the grass whatsoever. And to be quite honest, looking at the grass itself, and I mean, it was wet, so you'd see it. I couldn't even see any time marks where anybody had parked.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Having spoken at length with PCSO Stephanie Bacon on this, and including this patch on our patrols, she is going to be, you know, up in the patrols on this one. I myself I'm going to go round, and there's going to be loads of cars. It's going to look like well, I completely agree with Councillor Reevy and Whiting. However, I did go to a meeting, a PCC meeting last night, where there was the fire chief and officers there. They are doing a awareness on appliances and the parking elements on different parishes and towns. If I speak to the clerk tomorrow, I wonder if we consider this as an idea for an appliance to go around and do what I asked them to do outside the Higham Ferries Juniors and infant school, whether you take an appliance down and then you stick the stickers on all the cars to actually highlight. And if we can make some awareness on it, rather than perhaps go to the expense of the concrete bollards, to make residents aware of considerate parking. Unfortunately, parking where they are is not an offence, but the police officer is within their rights to knock on the door and say, you know, you need to think about how you're parking. So we've got a couple of angles there. I also think if we do it here, anybody with a bit of grass verge that doesn't want anybody on will be knocking on our door going, stick a bollard in it, which is my concern and my worry, and the ongoing upkeep of the bollards with grass cutting, the upkeep, replacing, vandalism and everything else that goes with it. So I'm against it. I don't see a reason for it myself. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I agree with Angela Gardner, Councillor Gardner, and with all the others who went round to have a look. I went round twice to have a look. I mean, admittedly, the parking is all over the road. I mean, it's quite very tight with the cars there. But I noticed as well, like Councillor Eva, the grass. I thought I was going to see, if there wasn't a van there, I thought I was going to see that the actual grass was all gone on the sides where they're continuously parking. But the grass is all right. I thought I was in the wrong place first, because the grass looked okay, and I would have thought that would be worn down but by then. So I wasn't really sure what they were talking about. And I do agree that there's issues with parking around there because it's so tight. But yeah, I mean, I'm against it as well.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Actually, what it is, they don't park on the grass itself. They put their wheels on fully onto the pavement. So I think what is the problem? If it is wet, then pedestrians are having to walk onto that grass to get past the vans. I think that is what the problem is, because I have seen when we were electioneering, it was in fact, I got into trouble because I parked my car on the road by one of the residents. I thought, well, that's what everybody else is supposed to do. She expected me to put it on the pavement so that she could get past easier with her car. No, it's a problem. It's going to get worse, unfortunately. Thank you.
Right, I think the general. Oh, sorry, Sandra, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I did have pictures of the vans parked there, but I did actually write to the companies whose names were on the vans, asking them to refrain from parking there a couple of weeks ago. So that looks like it's perhaps worked as an initial effort to try and stop it happening.
Okay, I'm listening to whatever he's saying. I think the general views were against putting bollards certainly in that position. So I don't know whether we actually want to have a vote on it or just, yeah, I suppose we better vote on it. So I'm going to propose that we turn it down.
I'll second it.
Oh.
So it's been proposed and
seconded.
All in favour of the proposal? Thank you. I'm assuming, and I'm only going to play that this came to this committee because it's on the side of a park, a grass area, rather than anything else. Because I would have thought it was more likely to have gone to full council, but anyway.
Yes, because it's on an open space.
Yeah. Only just though.
Yeah.
Okay, item number, I've lost my track now. Item number 9 is boundary wall to Castle Fields. Consider whether to take any action regarding the boundary wall on Castle Fields, page 20. I think I'm going to kick off to start with, and I have a feeling that this might be one of the, I say ancient walls, but certainly one of the older walls in the town. And it seems sad that it has started to collapse. So, and bearing in mind the situation of the resident, the owner, it does make me wonder whether we should be making at least a contribution. Otherwise, the wall will finally go completely. But after that short bit, Councillor Jackson.
Some time ago, I was asked by the resident to go around and have a look. And at that moment in time, it was very wet, and I couldn't really, because there was so much undergrowth. I had a job, and I said, well, the sensible thing would be to. Her son had been having a little go at it as well. And I said, the sensible thing would be, she was concerned about the stone being stolen. I said, well, the sensible thing would be to bring the stone inside of the garden. So therefore it's saved. There is a sort of a lean-to, which I suppose is almost of a type of gazebo, but it's a corrugated roof. And the roof slopes backwards over to the wall, and there is no guttering. I went round there this afternoon, so that when it rains, all the water is shed onto the actual stone wall, which doesn't help it. It's the next door neighbours, they've removed their ancient stone wall and they've built a block work wall. This one, I think we could be in a bit of a problem because there is another lady farther along the road. She has a much longer wall, and she's been approaching me several times for the town council to contribute to repairs. It happens to be next to the pub. And I said, well, unfortunately, it's one of these problems that it's a question of you have to go to the public house and say, can you help or assist in paying? Because it's a very strange system where you've got two neighbours, it's a joint ownership, and so therefore they're both responsible. In this instance, I did have a word with our clerk, and she said, no, it's not, as far as we're concerned, any responsibility to the council. I myself would say, if we're not careful, if we give a contribution to this, there are several properties along there that their walls are in bad condition, and we'll be doing it all the way along. Thank you.
Councillor Reevy.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Jackson. There are several walls have obviously taken a hit of the frost that we've had this year, I think, but several walls along Saffron Road where people have had to have them repaired. If you own a property with a stone wall, you're going to have to repair it. It's not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of the person who owns the wall. And if it's around your garden and you're responsible for it, why should we have to pay? Why should all taxpayers have to pay for that? I object to it. I really think we should just say no. It's your responsibility. They've had the pleasure of living overlooking Castlefields. Well, they're going to have to pay for a little bit of it now.
Right.
I'll get off me.
Oh.
So
no, that's perfectly all right. Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably two things here, isn't there? There's the fact that, as mentioned, the homeowner is responsible for it, and the possibility is that if you do repair that wall, you're going to have to end up repairing loads of people's walls around Higham Ferrers. And the second bit is, do you want to see an old wall go? And that's probably the thing, really. Do you want to actually get rid of that stone wall with it, because it'll eventually go, and they all will. However, the problem is, do we want to pay for it? And the fact is, you're right. I mean, I can't see that why should the taxpayer pay for somebody else's wall who is owned by somebody else? So which is a difficult thing. So I'm against it. However, I can see from Higham Ferrers' point of view, if all the stone walls went, it's not going to look great. You know, we look at Higham Ferrers and we see all the stone walls and we think it's nice. But that's another thing altogether, isn't it?
Councillor Gardner. Angela, you get your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Because it is ancient monument and the age of the walls and surrounding walls, is there nothing that English Heritage couldn't help us with? Is there a fund we could tap into? Is this worth looking into on a purely preservation point, considering the age of the walls and how important they are to the town? Is there any way that we could approach any kind of funding element to help this lady foot the cost? Because we have two things going on. I agree with Councillor Kelly there. Also, we have a practical safety element that if it was to go down, and it's in a terrible state, yes, it is probably due to, as Councillor Jackson said, of years of neglect from the homeowner and ignorance, I don't know if that's the right term, of having water go on a wall and then it falling down. But if there is anything that we can tap into to help this, but I also agree that it's setting a very dangerous precedent, repairing something that's technically nothing to do with us and should have been kept as maintenance by the homeowner.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Stone walls, the lime doesn't like water pouring on top of them. It just washes it away. But I'm sorry, please don't go to English Heritage, because they've got two walls that I'm having a problem trying to get them to repair as it is. That's the one on College Street and also the one on Saffron Road. And they keep saying, well, we're looking into it. We're a little bit concerned about how it was built, etc. And you think, for goodness sake, if you haven't learned how to repair a wall by now, you ought to move over and let somebody else take over. No, there is no way English Heritage will do anything because they can't afford to do what they actually are expected to do.
Councillor Reevy had her hand up again, and then it's Councillor Gardner.
Can I just ask Alicia, perhaps, if they took the stone wall down and put a fence up, would they need planning permission? Because they would be removing a stone wall. Could they? I wouldn't want them to remove the stone wall. Therefore, would they need planning permission to do that?
I'm assuming that the stone wall doesn't have any kind of heritage asset registration on it. Do you know that, Sandra?
Well, I don't know, because it's interesting. Obviously, next door built the concrete block wall, and others have got fences along there.
Because if you're going to demolish something that is listed or has a heritage asset, you do sometimes need to apply for permission to take it down, don't you?
Well, that's why I'm just thinking whether we need to ask a question of the officer at Historic England, whether you'd need ancient monument consent to do it, because it is on the edge of the ancient monument and it looks like it's an historic wall.
Okay, Councillor Gardner and then Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know if this lady wants the stone wall back up? Do we know whether she wants it back up? Is it something that she wants to retain? Is number one question. And the other question is the lady considered, crowdfunding? Have we got a kindly business or an entrepreneur or someone in Higham Ferries that could come to the aid of this lady and help? It's worth the ask. If you don't ask, you don't get, in my book. And I'm all for freebies. And it's, if she doesn't want it there and it's too much, then can we find out the information and give it to her so she can make an informed choice? If not, is there anyone that could help her? Because obviously this is a taxpayer's money, and would the taxpayer be happy with us doing and acting? It's their money at the end of the day. Or I sound like a different councillor.
Councillor Jackson.
This is a situation, I'd say, where it is essential that councillors actually go and look at the problem. The last time I visited, I couldn't quite get as close as I could today because it was winter time and it was the vegetation, the park side is quite high. So you have a job to see this wall. Because she has one of these gateways into the park, which I presume she's got a license for, you can go into that pathway. If you look over the wall, you'll see that the garden, the other side, her garden, is about a metre lower than the ground of the castle fields. And so there is a much wider wall lower down, which is where the water is cascading off the roof into. And of course, this is what the problem. But you've got a considerable wall, and we're only talking about 10 or 15% of the wall. It sort of tapers down. So we're not talking, I would think we're talking about 3 meters of stonework. It's not a big job. I would imagine the cost would be, if a contractor was to quote for it, it'd be something like about £1,200. But the wall, if you take the whole wall down, you will be talking an awful lot more than that, because it's a massive wall. You really need to look at it before you, but I would say, I'm sorry, we shouldn't really be considering putting any money towards it.
I think the lady would have liked the wall back, and she was hoping to claim on insurance, and obviously insurance said it's not covered. And she's just saying, I think because of the cost of it, it might be cheaper to take it down and put a blockwork wall there. But she really, isn't in a position to do that even at the moment. And what she's worried about is if we have the circus or the fair there, people can obviously peer into a garden or possibly climb in the garden. But at the moment, the vegetation's so thick, no, it wouldn't be easy for somebody to get there. So we'll keep that quite thick so they can't do it. And from a safety point of view, because people would have to really delve through the undergrowth, I'm not concerned that we need to put a fence up to stop people getting injured if it falls down again, because really it's not easy to get there. You're not going to be just stood there by chance.
I think we've got a big, I won't say dilemma, but this is actually a quite contentious issue, isn't it? I know we're not shouting at each other. I mean, there's obviously a great deal of sympathy for the lady, the property owner, but there's also a concern that we'll lose a stone wall. And one has to ask whether the block wall that's next door to it actually got planning permission, but never mind that. It's another thing. I do wonder whether maybe we should inquire more of whether, is this part of the ancient monument, which is Castle Fields, or is it just happened to bound onto it and is not part of that? With that, will obviously make a difference. And whether or not, the other thing would be whether or not we have longer discussions, possibly at full council, about it. Bert, sorry, go on.
There is so much stone wall still there, and it's only a small section of it, that there is no way you would remove all the stonework, because you'd be increasing the cost by about 75%. You need to look at it. You suddenly realise there's only a small amount of stonework that needs repairing, and you wouldn't take out all that stonework, the other stonework, just to replace one small section. No, it would have to be, it would be common sense to rebuild the stone section that has fallen down.
Right. I'll bow to your knowledge and the fact that you've seen it, whereas I'm a bit far away to see it at the moment.
I know what the problem is. I had one of my own house stone walls fall down some years ago, and of course I thought, oh, no problem, I'll claim on insurance. And they said, you didn't take out garden care. Now, insurance only covers your house and possibly your garage, if it's a separate garage, not any stone walls unless you take out garden cover.
Right. Does anybody, Councillor Reeve here, hopefully you have a solution for us.
No, I certainly don't, but I just don't think we should be setting a precedence by paying for somebody else's wall. So, yeah, my proposal is that we actually do not offer to pay for this wall to be repaired.
I'll second that.
Right. Well, it's been proposed and seconded that we don't offer to pay anything. So all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody against?
No, I'm not against. So I was for and not paying. I just wanted to say, obviously there is the element of we don't want to see walls go down. And as Councillor Gardner said, is there other things we can do rather than just saying no, we're not going to pay for it? Is that the end of the matter, or is there something that the council can actually do to help the lady with the wall?
Right. Before Angela jumps in, I think I can see Sandra with her hand up there.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk to Historic England. I mean, I think we will have a brief look into it, but also you've got to think, do we want to use council staff time when we're already a member of staff down to be researching something that we have no responsibility for? But we will email Historic England, because that's, you know, and do a few inquiries through them about how much that wall is part of the ancient monument, whether they've got any direction we can help with funding. Unfortunately, the lady at who was at East Northampton, who used to help with funding sources, well, she's no longer there. It's one of the jobs that seems to have been got rid of with the merger. Right. So,
right.
But also, because there used to be grants, you could get 4 listed buildings through the district council, I think. So We'll do some preliminary looks on that and see if we can find something, but we can't, with staff resources as they are, spend a lot of time on it, but we will make some initial inquiries to see what we can find out.
Okay, I think I was going to abstain on that one anyway. So I think the we're not paying for it proposal has been supported there, and I think possibly if Sandra and Alicia would like to spend a few minutes trying to inquire whether or not it is part of the ancient monument, we should probably put a different light on it all. Right. Item number, where we got to 10, which is the clerk's report, which is on page 21, which seems to be very brief.
I did just have one other item I wanted to add to that, unless anybody's got questions about the chairs at Nightingale Way play area.
Well, I've got Councillor Jackson up, hand up, and Councillor Reevy's hand up. So, Bert, if you'd like to go ahead first.
Yeah, obviously, I do the rec inspection on farmers market days. So, in other words, once a month. And I went round and it was all barriered off, and there was big heaps underneath canvas sheets. And of course, as I walked towards the actual park, one of the ladies said, "What's the problem with the seats?" And I said, "Well, I've no idea. I've just come in." I said, "Well, they're waiting to go up." She said, "Oh no," she said, they were actually assembled, and then they came and put them down again and covered them all up. So I spoke obviously to our town clerk, and she said it was a problem with safety on them. But I've been wondering why they've just been sitting under the canvas sheets forevermore.
Yeah,
but because they were actually assembled, and then they were taken down, I understand, because they were unsafe.
Yeah, I can clarify that for you. So Highways England came on site with their various cranes to install them, and the design that was to be used was that they were going to be pinned into the ground. So that was all set up for the day of installation. But while they were there doing it, they felt that the pins weren't sufficient because the chairs are designed such that they're quite tall. And so there was concern that the pins would not hold the chairs if children, or I suppose adults, if anybody climbed onto the chair, managed to get to the top of the chair, it would sort of cantilever it over. So the pin system wasn't felt to be strong enough. And so Highways England decided that they couldn't install them like that and leave them because they felt there was a health and safety issue. So they have gone away and they are having to redesign the way that they're going to be installed on site. And we're still waiting for them to come back with that redesign on that installation. I know it has taken some time.
Some time ago.
Chairs are, as you say, complete, but lying down under cover. I have chased them a couple of times, and I'm in liaison with Paul Valentine, who is their liaison officer, and he's chasing as well. It's just taking some time, but unfortunately, the chairs are free to us, and they're paying for the installation. So I can't really do a lot more, I feel, than just obviously chase them and remind them that it's quite important to get them up, because obviously, you know, the children from the schools have been involved in it as well. So they're disappointed that the chairs aren't installed for them to go and look at. And obviously the opening was postponed as well. But yeah, we're waiting on Highways England for that.
Well, the last time I spoke to Sandra, she wasn't aware of that problem. Well, she knew there was a problem, but not what the problem was. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah, I put my hand up before, Tony. It's
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go on.
I am concerned. They are lovely. I mean, when they actually went up for that brief weekend, I did actually manage to get a look at them, and they are absolutely magnificent. They equally match what we've got on Castle Field. I am concerned about their well-being, since they're wrapped up in the tarpaulins, and I know that the carver is as well. So are they going to stay like that, Alicia? Can they move them somewhere else until they've sorted the problem out? I know they'd have to get the cranes back in, wouldn't they?
I think moving them somewhere else while they sort the problem out is very expensive for them, because it involves the hire of a crane again to take them off site.
Yeah.
And then they would have to find somewhere to store them. And I too saw the email with regard to the concerns from the wood carver, and again have sort of passed that on to Paul Valentine at Highways England.
Right, okay, so hopefully, I mean, it's obvious that now that if we're planning the unveiling of them as it was before, it won't be until September, because it was with the children from the schools, but we're going to lose the year 6 children because they will be in secondary school. So it's really unfortunate, but yeah. It is a big problem, and it's now they're going to be laying there now all the way through August and probably half of September. So I just hope that they aren't getting damaged underneath the tarpaulin.
Councillor Gardner.
I'm sure Paul Valentine has already thought of this, the industrial fellow he is. But at the Stanwick Lakes, there's 1, 2, 3 chairs very similar to the ones that we are proposing in situ. I have photos of my rat bags climbing all over them. So don't laugh, but so I'm just wondering, however they used it, if it can withstand my bunch, the chairs can withstand anything. I'm just wondering how on earth did they get theirs in, because they're the same small seat, huge long back. If they could go and ask them how did they make it work and implement said same idea.
I can definitely pass that on and ask that question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that the end of the clerk's report, I think?
Sorry, could I just add something else?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I just wanted to report to you about an incident that happened down at Riverside Park just over a week ago. We had a report of a flooding, possible sort of sewage issue coming from the bottom of Wharf Road. That was reported to Anglian Water, and over the weekend it transpired that actually the incident was connected to the property at the end of Wharf Road, 110 Wharf Road, that backs onto the Riverside Park, and an outlet pipe has been exposed just near the boundary of their property with ours. So it's on our land. There's an outlet pipe, and that is linked to not a septic tank, but a treatment plant, a domestic treatment plant on their property. So that's been reported to the Environment Agency because the flooding incident was coming from this pipe. So the Environment Agency have investigated and have sent a letter to the residents with regard to the incident and referred them through to their, they're called general binding rules with regard to discharge. And the rules are linked to how much you are discharging as to whether you need permits or not. So the Environment Agency have written to the owners, but regardless of all of that, there is a discharge pipe that is on our land that we haven't given consent for. So it's to flag that part of it to you and to say that we will be writing to the owners of 110 Wharf Road about this to follow it up.
Right, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, following on from Alicia's comments there, I was aware of this, and funnily enough, I was down there on Sunday afternoon, and there is, I presume it is drained down, so I could not see anything bubbling up from the ground in any way. But if you go into the gate into the pocket part and turn immediately right through the gate, you walk up a small distance, and there is a definite marshy, boggy area. I'm assuming that maybe some of that is drained down. It's obviously coming downhill. Well, I'm somewhat concerned on this, coming from that sort of drainage background myself. But if there's any sign of effluent getting into the old course of the river, our water, and there's any fish death on it, we will definitely go for compensation on that.
Right, Councillor Jackson.
That actually area is what used to be the butterfly park, isn't it?
Yeah.
This was quite contentious, this application, over 2 or 3 years. And eventually they got permission, because at one time it was stopped. But septic tanks all have an overflow, because obviously, depending on how much effluent goes into them, if it does overflow, but it should go into a soakaway. So presumably they're using our butterfly park as the soakaway.
Yes, that's the understanding.
Yeah, so in other words, it needs completely removing and putting within their property. That soakaway should be within their property.
Yeah.
And in fact, they have a bit of a problem, because all soakaways should be 5 metres from a boundary. But I don't think they'll be able to manage that. Anyway, that's their problem.
Yeah.
Is this something, Alicia, that maybe, I know you've just reported it as an extra on here, maybe that should that be taken to full council at the end of the month, in case anything needs to be done legally over it?
We will write to the residents, but if we don't have a response, or there is, effectively we don't have a response and the issue is not resolved, then yes, there will be an issue to take to council, because as you say, there is discharge onto our land that is not permitted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering whether the council meeting the end of July would be the one to have it on the agenda there, on the basis that we're not leaving it another month.
Yeah, we could. Sandra, you can.
I'm just tossing it in there. If you and Sandra, I would say, if you and Sandra want to talk about, and possibly with Pam, before you put an agenda out.
Yeah, I think it's something. I mean, former Councillor Gell actually raised it to us initially as an urgent matter, and we reported it straight away to Anglian Water, but until we now understand, and I think the resident has now become aware of it, from what I can understand from Mr. Gell. So we are writing to them. I mean, we probably need to keep the council up to date, because obviously at some point we may need to take a bit heavier action if nothing is done, because it is, as Councillor Spencer is saying, we don't need this running across one of our open spaces.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to receive the clerk's report, do we? It's only an advisory committee, so.
There's also a health issue for obviously the public using the pocket park.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sandra, go ahead.
Can I just add something? We did at the last meeting talk about a management plan for Riverside Park, and you suggested that I try and get a member of the public involved. Well, I did speak to Rich Gell about helping. I did a scope of works that I was looking at, and due to his past history with the site, I spoke to him, and he's actually undertaking some work on it over the summer for us. So hopefully we might be able to report on that in September, and he may even come to the meeting to talk about it.
Okay. Councillor Jackson.
If you remember, we did actually have a Friends of Riverside Park who used to do quite a bit, but unfortunately they slowly left, and eventually it all closed down. It is very difficult to get volunteers to carry on over a long period of time for doing things. So, but we obviously need to do something down there. It does need some work doing on it.
Okay, item number 11, Parish Path Warden Report, which is on page, whatever it is, 22. I think once again she's done a wonderful job. Although I do find it, I'm assuming the path runs side the dog park was the one, yeah, that goes up one side, which is I'm surprised it's overgrown because it's very well used from my experience. But I'm, like her, a bit disappointed at the response, but maybe that's what we should expect these days. Councillor Jackson.
Once again, sorry to keep cutting in, excuse me. I've gone round quite a few of the footpaths of Higham Ferrers. Most of them are overgrown. The problem is, unfortunately, it is highways, their responsibility, apart from the greenways, but they just haven't got the labour force to do this work. Also, we've had an awful lot of wet weather, which has encouraged all the weeds, but a lot of the paths are in a bad state. I did go along our greenway, and the last section has now been done. Presumably, Alicia, that was done by Payback, was it?
Yeah, the Greenway extension section that is our responsibility has been trimmed and cleared by Payback.
Now, I'm being naughty here, but I thought that land belonged to Woodleys. That last section of land, they actually own that footpath, no?
Payback may have done more than I asked them to do then. I asked them.
I'm being naughty because what I'm saying is if we can use Payback to do that section that we don't own, then perhaps we could do the other section that I was hoping to get done, because I've got Mr. Oram on my back again asking, when are we going to get it all done? And unfortunately, highways just haven't got the resources to do it.
Oh, so Payback have trimmed right through to very close, is what you're saying?
Yes. They've gone right through to Kimbolton Road. And I thought, well, that's strange. If Payback can do that without, I mean, I realise what their problem is. It's obviously insurance, isn't it?
Well, Payback, we have an agreement with Payback, and the agreement stipulates what work they can sort of do for us. And they are required to do work on our land holding or work that is the responsibility of the town council. They can't be doing work that is the responsibility of another organisation, because that should be in a contract with the other organisation.
I just assumed it's obviously the workforce have to be covered for public liability, etc. Whereas if you're doing work on Higham, then Higham assumes that responsibility for that workforce. And I just wonder whether that's the reason why they're saying they will only do Higham. Because I just thought for that very short section, as long as everybody was happy with it being done, why not get Payback to do it? Because we're not going to be able to get highways to do that.
I
But
think
that's between yourself and the town clerk.
I think as well, Councillor Jackson, and the other issue is some of these work creates waste, which we then have to pay to get rid of.
Oh, I realise the problem.
Yeah.
But it's a question of everybody sits back and says, sorry, can't do it. And because it just makes Higham look very untidy.
Mm.
And if you go around any of our footpaths, they're all growing inwards, and you now have a job to walk along some of them. Obviously, from the hedges up to the John Clark roundabout, that has completely closed over at the top. It's like a tunnel. But it's a question of they haven't got the resources to do it.
Councillor Spencer.
Yeah, sorry to come in on this one a bit, but I thought while we're talking footpaths, last year, with the pandemic and the bad weather we had, the piece of footpath going through our fishery, which is from the bottom of Wharf Road up to the Dinosaur Bridge, which I will stand corrected on, but I believe forms part of the Nen Valley Way. The Angling Club put the footpath in all alongside the backwater. The footpath going up to the Dinosaur Bridge was a nice stone footpath. During that lockdown, when walking was the only thing a lot could do, and the weather, it was ridiculous that the general public, and I'm underlining general, was along there by the, I won't say the 100, but certainly by dozens and dozens. And ended up walking about 5-6 inches deep in wet mud in trainers. Some of them had got on, and they absolutely plastered that, and now it is basically looks like a mud footpath. I believe, Alicia, you did put something in for us on that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I may have done actually.
All right, or Sandra, yeah.
Yeah.
And the reply we got back was ridiculous from the highways. Basically, summing it up, they were just saying, well, most of the footpaths in our area are earth, and we deem that's all what's necessary, virtually, which I think is ridiculous for a part of the Nen Way. I would like to see that chased up again, if possible, before the winter comes.
I mean, I think that those sort of issues are things that the unitary councillors need to take on. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, because we've got three unitary councillors, and to be honest, you should have as good contacts as what we have. Because all we could do is put it on Fix My Street.
Yeah.
As I said, unfortunately, resources are very stretched, and of course they consider footpaths are the last things that they do with the odd few pennies they've got left. That appears to be the attitude.
I've got no problem with that, as long as the public don't start moaning to dust, because they tend to think everything down there is down to us.
Oh, don't worry, they're all moaning at me instead, so you're covered on that one.
Right, shall we move on then, councillors?
Sorry about that.
It's all right. Item 12, items to report, an opportunity for members of the committee to report items for the request future agenda items. No decision can be made under this item. Does anybody want to?
Can I just
I'll start renaming you shortly, Councillor Gardner, but go on. Yes, go on, Angela, go on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's not necessarily for the next agenda item. The roundabout in Saffron Road play area that is broken and it doesn't go round and round is currently only got 2 orange bollard long ones either side. Every morning when I park the car at 8:30 to take the girls to school, I make my religious trip into said playground, put them all back up and clean around that area. Is there any way we can either make that bit more secure, is the question. I know you can't answer me, I'll just leave it with you. And if you could email me the information, when is it going to be fixed? Fab, thank you.
Councillor Reevy.
Yes, I know that it's been really useful to have the co-op, the bus lay-by closed off because of the COVID restrictions. Presumably that is going to come to an end soon, and I just wonder how feasible it is that when they actually come to put it back to as it was, would we be able to have a bus shelter put similar to the one that's near Chowns Mill, one of the clear ones? And can I take that to council?
Well, what are you looking for? The town council to fund the bus shelter or highways to fund the bus shelter?
Town council probably. I can't see highways doing it, but they're going to have to come at some point. They're going to have to come because they made a bit where you could actually dismount the bus, couldn't they, without actually pulling into the lay-by. So that I would have thought that they were going to have to come and change that. So would they be prepared to put a bus shelter there at the same time?
We're not meant to discuss
I know,
this, and I know
but
Councillor Jackson wants to leap in
Can I
there.
just point out, one of the reasons it was put there is because the pavement is only about 6 foot wide there.
Yeah,
and that was the reason why it was done, because with COVID, you couldn't walk along the pavement and self-distance. So unfortunately, you won't be able to get a bus shelter on it. We really need to go back and get the pavement. In other words, that lay-by needs reducing in width, because it's almost 2 bus widths wide. Then you could get your bus shelter in.
Right, I think we're
Okay,
getting into a
sorry.
discussion which we're not meant
Yes,
to be
sorry
having.
about that.
So I think if you want to raise it and bring it into another, either to the committee again or to the main council, as you well know, Councillor Reeve, you know how to do it.
I think there's one that really comes under planning and development because they deal with highways.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Item 12 is date of next meeting, which is set the 14th of September 2021. So can I say thank you, councillors and officers? And I believe Sandra would like some of us, I don't know whether it's all of us, but some of us to just remain online.
Yes, those that are on the COVID working group, which is Councillor Redding,
Okay.
Councillor Whiting, Councillor Reeve, Councillor Gardner, Councillor VJ's not here, is he? Yeah.
Okay, well, let me say thank you to the other councillors, and nice to meet you, Gerald. At least I know it's from 500 miles away, but hopefully we'll meet at some stage in the near future.
Yeah, it's nice to see you all put faces to names, so that's great.
Okay, thanks very
Yeah.
much.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye. Right.
Can
Get
I
rid of
ask a
this lot
question?
now,
Am I
can't
on the COVID? I thought I was, but I didn't think I heard my name.
No, because you're not deputy leader anymore, Bert. It's
That's
leader,
fine.
deputy.
No, that's fine. That's no
Sorry.
problem. No, I'm not worried at all. Anyway, I will say good night. And not only that, Chairman, you'll then be able to get back to your day job, won't you?
Yeah, well, hopefully, yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi, Bert.
Sorry, I'm going to just turn us off YouTube. I've just realised.